Hello silver friends, this is Joli from 𝐋𝐚𝐢𝐿, and today I'm excited to start a new series called Simply Silver Curls. In the coming weeks, I'm going to release several videos about curly hair and silver curly hair specifically. Today's video is on curly girl method, the ins and outs, the frustrations, the overwhelm, the successes. I wanted to go over, my 8 simplified tips that I give most people when they ask me about curly girl method. I basically practiced this method for 20 years, so I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of it. And then when I ditched the dye, I went through this period of kind of screaming into the void about that silver curls were different and had different needs. And I've learned a lot, so I wanted to start sharing all of that information with you. If you have straight hair, please don't click away yet, because one thing is true. Silver hair and curly hair are drier hair types, so much of the information that applies to curly hair will also apply to silver hair no matter what texture it is, because this is about getting healthy hair. And one of the things about having your best curl is having healthy hair. So this is beneficial to straight hair types also. I know it might not be the most interesting thing in the world to hear about curls if you have straight hair, but you might glean some information for the health of your hair overall. I hope you stick around. Before we get started, you may want to grab a notebook to take notes. I found that through this process, my #1 tool for helping me navigate products and application methods and so forth was taking notes. I take notes when I'm watching other influencers or instructors or stylists, and I take notes on the daily when I'm trying new products so I can figure out what's working and what's not. So grab a notebook and then we can get started. First, we're going to talk about what is Curly Girl Method. Curly Girl Method was created in 2001 by Lorraine Massey, who wrote the book, The Curly Girl Handbook. This is, I believe, the 2nd edition, and I know there are a couple of editions of the book. I originally bought the 1st edition in 2001. I was in a bookstore and somehow, I don't know why I was in the hair section, but I was, and I saw the book. I bought it. I came home, read it from cover to cover, and immediately ditched all of my non-curly girl approved products, and then began the search for products that met the criteria of Curly Girl Method. So the basics of Curly Girl Method are no sulfates, no silicones, no mineral oils, no drying alcohols, no waxes, no parabens, no heat tools, no combs and brushes. Now, there are more rules that have come into play through the years, and depending on what group or curly girl you're following or listening to, there are modifications and so forth. A couple of years ago, Lorraine herself came forward and said there's no such thing as modified curly girl method. If you are not doing what she outlines, you are not doing curly girl method. So there was a pretty big outrage over that, because there were many of us that were considering ourselves devout followers of curly girl method. I was one of them. But listening to her talk when she announced this, I realized I broke the rules and was not curly girl method right from the start. First rule is no shampoo or sulfates. This is the first rule I broke because I could not wash my scalp with conditioner. It caused itching and buildup and acne, and it was just not for me. So I started using sulfate-free cleansers, which is considered low poo. So I use low poo cleansing. There is no poo cleansing, which is the original method of washing your hair with conditioner, or now you can use co-washes that are specifically designed to be cleansers without surfactants or soap, so they don't bubble or foam, but they actually do cleanse and condition kind of at the same time. This is the easiest rule to really follow, in my opinion, if you just stick to no sulfates, because so many companies now have created products with no sulfates. I mean, even in the drugstore, you can find shampoos that are sulfate free. And most curly lines now are sulfate free. Rule number 2 is silicone free. So none of your products should have silicones in them. In my opinion, this can get tricky with silver hair because silicones provide a very unique chemistry to a formula. They allow your hair to have slip. They seal the hair from moisture escaping and entering, so that's where the problem comes in. But if you are using the low poo method, where you actually are using some sort of surfactant, you will probably cleanse those silicones away, especially if they are water or shampoo soluble silicones. So my rule of thumb with silicones, I don't actually use silicones very often. My shampoo, conditioner, leave-in, and gel all are silicone free. I have stuck to that for many years because silicones for me can straighten my hair because I have such a loose curl pattern anyway. I think it just coats the strand, weighs it down, and makes it straighter. But with silver hair, the frizz factor is a real challenge, and silicone can actually help with frizz. So it might be something you want in your lineup. My rule of thumb with silicones is to use it in the last phases of my hair care if possible. I do have a couple of conditioners that I like that have silicones in them, and I only use them once in a while, so I don't really worry about them there. But if I'm going to use silicones, I want them in like a oil, like a nourishing oil from Loma, and I use it to scrunch out the crunch and seal the hair at the same time. Because I live in a dry climate, and then I live in a climate that gets humid rapidly in the summertime because of monsoon season, this is helpful to me because it can help seal my hair from those rapid changes from really dry to really humid. And you may find if you live in a really humid climate, silicones can help with keeping the moisture out. And if you live in a really dry climate, it can help with keeping the moisture in. So, again, my rule of thumb with silicones is not in every product that you put on your hair, and make sure that if you are using silicones, you are low poo. I don't think that silicones work when you're co-washing because it will build up on your hair. And you can always add clarifying to your routine, which I think is very beneficial to all hair types. Rule number 3 is no drying alcohols. The problem with this is you see alcohol on the label and you think that you can't use the product. But in formulations for hair care, there are 2 types of alcohols. There are drying alcohols like isopropyl alcohol and denatured alcohol, and then there are fatty alcohols like cetearyl alcohol and cetyl alcohol. Those actually provide a conditioning agent to your product and are actually really good for your hair. So alcohol is kind of a tricky one. I think that originally when Lorraine wrote this material, we were spraying our hair with Aquanet and, or some type of hairspray. And those hairsprays, the second ingredient was alcohol so that the product dried quickly and so your hair dried quickly. The downside is that alcohol dries your hair out. So really no alcohol would be, in my mind, no hairspray with alcohol in it. Because in formulation, alcohol can be in the latter ingredients, meaning in the lesser ingredients, to help emulsify ingredients together. And sometimes that alcohol dissolves in the process of formulation. Sometimes it's gone before it's put in the bottle, but they have to claim it because it was put in the formula. So I don't really worry about alcohol unless it's like the second or third ingredient, and then make sure you know your alcohols between your drying alcohols and your fatty alcohols. Rule number 4 is no brushes and no combs. Fingers only for detangling. This was another rule that I broke pretty early on, so I started using a wide tooth comb to evenly distribute my conditioners and leave-ins because I felt like with my really fine hair, it helped to make sure that everything got some leave-in conditioner specifically, and it helped me detangle my hair because using my fingers, it just wasn't enough and I just didn't feel like it was evenly distributed. So I feel like using a wide tooth comb gently on wet hair with good conditioner and good slip is a safe bet. And there are even wet brushes now that are designed specifically for this. I will say make sure your conditioner has some slip in it because the most vulnerable point of breakage in your hair is when it's wet. So you do want to be really careful there. If you have straight hair and you're still here with me, do not comb your hair when it's wet. You're probably going to experience some severe breakage in that case. and it's probably more advisable for you to comb your hair when it's dry. I also would like to say that if you are brushing or combing your hair and you have curly hair, you know, reserve it to pre-shampoo when your curl is at its loosest. And if it's really tangled, skip it all together and go back to, you know, getting it wet, getting some conditioner and slip into it, and reserving your detangling for that time frame. I occasionally use a paddle brush before I shower when, you know, my waves have dropped. I like to detangle my hair, and I like the scalp massage of a paddle brush. So, you know, I don't think that skipping brushes altogether is necessary. However, just being really gentle with your hair so you don't cause mechanical damage and breakage is more ideal. Number 5, this is one that I felt was really beneficial to me, and that was ditch the terry cloth towel. Find a microfiber towel with no loops that's a smooth fabric. The Perfect Hair Care towel is my favorite because it's kind of like a silky microfiber. It's a wonderful towel. I actually feel like I kind of need 2 of them because they're a little bit thin, but you can kind of figure out what works for you. Also, when you're towel drying your hair, don't rough your hair up. That totally breaks up your curl pattern and causes frizz no matter what kind of hair you have, whether you have straight hair or curly hair. So ditching a terry cloth towel was really beneficial to me. I think it helped my, you know, my hair care process a lot. And on that same token, you know, adding in a silk pillowcase, using silk scrunchies can also help because it's a smooth fabric that doesn't cause friction on your hair. Same token with using a microfiber towel, learn how to plop your hair. I will include that in further videos, so stay tuned for that, but I do have a video that I will link below where I do show you how I plop my hair and how I use my microfiber towel. So I'll link that below. Number 6 is no heat tools. So with silver hair, I feel like this is definitely a rule that we've talked about because we don't want our hair to turn yellow. And with curly hair, I can see why this became a rule because we were blow drying our hair straight in the early 90s and late 90s to the point that it was, you know, extremely damaging. And the brush comes into play here too because we're using round brushes and high heat. And I can see how, you know, that rule came into the curly girl method. Here's the thing. I have low porosity hair. I have to blow dry my hair, otherwise sometimes it will be wet for 4 or 5 hours. So I use a diffuser, and I use the Black Orchid diffuser. I've mentioned it before on this channel. That's my favorite one. I always use a hair dryer that is low enough. Basically, my rule of thumb is if it's burning my scalp, it's too hot. So I either turn it down or use the cool shot. And if you are going to use flat irons and curling irons, make sure you're using a heat protectant that's rated for 450 degrees. The 𝐶𝐸 blowout cream and 𝐶𝐸 curl cream both are rated to 450 degrees. And make sure your tools are up to date. Make sure they're modernized, and make sure that you can adjust the temperature below 365 degrees because 365 degrees, that's where your hair starts to deteriorate and become damaged from the heat. So I don't think it's necessary to avoid heat tools altogether, but use them mindfully. And if you have been straightening your curls and your hair is damaged from the straightener, it might be time to give it up for a while. That would be a good idea. I think that it would help you really understand what you're working with your curls and return your hair to its healthiest state. So use that one, you know, if you feel like your hair is healthy enough to handle it, fine. If not, it might be time to ditch it and come back to it later once you've restored that health. Number 7 is learn your hair type. Learning your hair type will help you to buy products that keep your hair from getting weighed down, that keep your hair moisture balanced, that keep your hair from having too much protein or not enough protein. But curl pattern doesn't dictate any of that, so you want to look at the porosity, the density, and the texture of your hair. I have a post and a video on hair type, which will be linked below, and you can dig further into that. And I have a video on porosity coming up in this curl series, so stay tuned for that. But hair type is really important for buying products and learning what your hair needs. Number 8 is application method, and I feel like this is the most important aspect of curly hair and curly hair care because how you apply your products determines how your curl is going to look at the end of your styling process. And when you apply your products and how you apply each product can also play into this. So you may need different application methods for different products. Because this is pretty complex and it's so important, I am doing a full video on application method all on its own. So that is coming up in the series, so stay tuned for that. And, you know, I know that that's a really confusing space, but I really feel like it is the most important because it makes the difference between having great curls and frizzy curls. Everything I have discussed in this video will be linked in the description box below. That includes hair type, porosity, ingredients, and so forth. If I have a post or a video, it'll be down there. Also in the description box is a link to my email subscription. If you want to get my latest notifications, the best way to do that on what's happening in the Quicksilver hair world is to sign up to my email list, including when the Simply Silver Curls videos are available for viewing. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments because one of the videos that I would like to do in this series is to actually do a Q&A and answer your questions directly because I cannot cover all of this material and remember everything that people are going to have questions about. So please leave your questions in the comments below and I will get to them in a future video. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so now so I can see you next time. Until then, shine on.